updates. So rather than get into Proverbs right away, I'll run some of this news by you. Pope Francis says that teaching gender theory is indoctrination. Every once in a while, the man actually says something that makes sense, and that's kind of confusing, isn't it? He says it's one thing to have homosexual tendencies or a sex change, the Pope said, but it's another thing to teach it in schools. Trying to change attitudes like this is ideological colonization, the Pope said. I hate it when he says something I have to agree with. That's not often, but sometimes. Deutsche Hell, it says here, desperate German bank pleads over £10 billion fine with U.S. as it teeters on the brink. OMG, troubled Deutsche Bank is desperately trying to haggle down a gigantic mis-selling fine, which investors fear could sink the company and heavily damage Germany's economy. Merkel says she's not going to bail them out, which is what we should have said in the United States back in 2012 when they took all our money. China has gone all out to become a global aviation power. Last year, China unveiled the COMAC C919, a jetliner intended to compete with passenger planes produced by Airbus and Boeing. The aircraft will perform its first flight next year and will then carry out test flights for additional 3 years, the Chinese news agency said. COMAC was established by several companies, including AVIC. New DNA testing on 2,000-year-old elongated Paracas skulls changes known history. Well, this is interesting. Now, a second round of DNA testing has been completed, and the results are just as controversial. The skulls tested, which date back as far as 2,000 years, were shown to have European and Middle Eastern origins. These surprising results changed the known history about how Americans were populated, about how the Americas were populated. Well, interesting. France has a ticking time bomb of Islamization. Both studies, filling a huge knowledge deficit on religious and ethnic demography, were widely reported in the media. France is a country well equipped with demographers, scholars, professors, and research institutes. But any official data or statistics based on race, origin, or religion are prohibited by law. How has the human race survived this long? God's grace. That's the only way. Because we're just so dumb, aren't we? Cash-strapped Saudi Arabia switches to the Gregorian calendar to pay civil servants less. Now that's what you got to call cheap, isn't it? Saudi Arabian civil servants will lose 11 days of pay after the country switched to the Gregorian calendar. The predominant format for organizing time in the West, the switch is part of austerity measures meant to curb the budget deficit. So for money's sake, they're changing their entire calendar. Okay? Russia's Putin suspends plutonium cleanup accord with U.S. because of unfriendly acts. These wars are ahead. They may be a little further ahead than what I had thought. Now, it seems like they're about to blow up any day now, right? Well, I don't think they will. See, these wars are already going on over there. There's already people dying every day in Syria, in the Ukraine, in Crimea, all over the place. There are people dying every day. Let's see. Now, it says the Kremlin spokesman said Putin had signed a decree suspending the 2010 agreement of the plutonium cleanup accord. under which each side committed to destroy tons of weapons-grade material because Washington had not been implementing it and because of current tensions in relations. Oh, goodness. These wars, I think they're going to continue the way they are. I don't think we're going to have a huge, big blow-up situation where we have nukes yet. Okay? I don't have the time in this segment to go through that with you, but I will. Maybe we can do that on the show tomorrow, is go through and talk about these wars in detail. Magnitude 5.3 quake hits Bolinao, Pangasinan, wherever that is. Oh, it's in the Philippines. Now, we have an LA earthquake warning. Are you aware of that? An imminent earthquake warning is in effect for LA residents through Tuesday. That would be tomorrow. Multiple news outlets have reported. ABC, in conjunction with the Associated Press. Oh, where'd it go here? Okay. In conjunction with the Associated Press, references a story released Friday in the Orange County Register. The publication explains that this warning follows a group of small tremblers or earthquakes beneath the Salton Sea. Let me pull that up and give you some more information on that. What is that noise? Right here. It's like somebody playing with a mic or something. Caribbean fears for coastal families as Hurricane Matthew gets close. Haiti and Jamaica urged residents in vulnerable coastal areas to evacuate, and Cuba suspended flights on Sunday as bands of rain from Hurricane Matthew, the strongest storm to menace Caribbean nations since 2007, drenched the Jamaican capital. Matthew's slow-moving center was expected to come near southwestern Haiti and Jamaica on Monday as a major storm bringing winds of 145 miles per hour. Wow. Okay, Hungary's prime minister claims the EU migrant quota EU migrant quota referendum victory. It says Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has declared victory in a referendum on mandatory EU migrant quotas, despite a low turnout that appeared to render it invalid. Nearly 98% of those who took part supported the government's call to reject the EU plan. But only 43% of the electorate voted, short of the 50% required to be valid. Dang, how about that? Belfast rabbi, Northern Ireland says anti-Semitism is growing in Northern Ireland. It's on the rise as the Jewish community continues to suffer from repeated threats and acts of vandalism in Belfast. One local rabbi told the BBC Sunday, Rabbi David Singer, head of the Belfast Jewish Community Congregation, said that Jewish graves, synagogues, and public spaces throughout Northern Ireland have been defaced with anti-Jewish graffiti over recent months. Now remember, the temptation for a wicked world is to hate Israel, hate the people of God. That's a spirit called Gog, okay, that hates Israel. It's haters of Israel. Germany presses the U.S. to lift Iran's sanctions as it courts closer ties. Yeah, sure. Like that's ever going to happen. Well, it probably already has. Actually, it's my understanding it already has happened, that Obama has he's lifted the sanctions already. Now, it says Trump campaign, New York Times illegally obtained his tax records. The Trump presidential campaign is accusing the New York Times of participating in illegal behavior after the newspaper published some of his tax records on Saturday night. Who cares about Trump's tax records? He hasn't ever claimed to be a politician. I don't really care about his tax records. I expect that, like every other rich businessman, he gets out of most of them. Don't they all? And why wouldn't you if the laws allow you to? Okay, the laws are the problem. Why American military doctrine is doomed for failure. An analysis of U.S. generals' growing dissatisfaction with the political leadership in Washington sheds new light on the direction in which the American military machine is heading. In particular, it is interesting to observe the military planning for the future of the sea, air, space, cyberspace, and land forces. China eyes ending the Western grip on top UN jobs with greater control over blue helmets. China is believed to have its sights on the United Nations top peacekeeping job, a position that would place a country with an abysmal human rights record in charge of the world's second largest expeditionary force of more than 100,000 peacekeepers deployed in hotspots around the world. Let's see. Now we have 52 people were killed and many more injured in Ethiopia's Oromia region during a protest at a religious festival, the government says. Some died in a stampede after police employed tear gas, rubber bullets, and baton charges. It looks like that's about, let me see if there's anything else we need to look at. I think that'll probably do it. Let's get into our study in Proverbs. We're starting at Proverbs 6, verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. If you have a problem being corrected and instructed, you are not going to make it very far, are you? You're just going to be in ignorance, aren't you? Instruction and reproofs, that's corrections, are the way of life. You must be willing to take correction from God. I'm not talking about correction from people. Take correction from God and the authorities that he has placed over you, and you will be okay. In verse 24, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Now, women these days are scary, okay? And I would tell men to beware. Women are conniving and looking. So many of them are men stealers. They'll go after married men because that's what they want. They want someone who is willing to take care of them and their children. Okay? And so they go after married men because single men who don't want to be married and don't want to take care of their families, they don't want them. They want the ones that are faithful. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. You know, a woman will look at you and she's got her ways, okay? For by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. See, that the life she wants is the married man who's faithful, who has a good job, who takes care of his family. That's who she's after. A man who she can trap into taking care of her and any illegitimate children she has. Okay? Now, I mean, I don't mean to come down on women, but we're talking about whorish women here. Women who will lure you and then trap you like a black widow spider. Okay? Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? She's fire. She's death. Okay? Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned. Now, there are good women out there, okay? There are good women out there. But a woman who lures you, flatters you, who knows you're married but is willing to see you anyway, she's a whore. All right? So he that goeth in to his neighbor's wife, whosoever toucheth her shall not be innocent. Don't mess with another man's wife, for heaven's sakes. Men do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul when he is hungry. Now, they don't hate a thief if he steals something to eat because he's hungry. But if he be found, he shall restore sevenfold. If the thief is caught, he needs to restore. He shall give all the substance of his house if he's caught. Just because the law in Italy has been changed. Did you know that? In Italy, they're saying it's not against the law anymore to steal if you're hungry. Okay? There goes my stomach growling. I hope y'all can't hear that. I usually eat dinner after the show. Okay. I'm starving after the show, actually, every day. Verse 32. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. You're not real smart if you are committing adultery. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. You're destroying your own soul. The word says that sexual sins are committed against your own body. Okay? You don't want to do that. A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. A wound. Let me describe to you what kind of wound. Like her coming back and saying, okay, I'm pregnant. It's yours. Now you've got to take care of me and take care of this baby when it's not yours. But if you were stupid enough to get sucked into her web and it is your child and you do get her pregnant, then a wound and dishonor shall he get. A wound, yeah, a gaping wound where you're going to be paying out for your child from now on. You're going to be paying her, okay? And dishonor. Because when this kind of woman is not going to sit back and let you hide her, she's going to tell your wife, okay? And your life is going to be torn to pieces because of her. A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. For jealousy is the rage of a man. Therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. Jealousy is the rage of a man. Now, if you want to see jealousy in a man, look at someone whose wife is cheating on him. Therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He's going to kill the guy and he's going to get rid of her too. He will not regard any ransom. You can try to pay him. You can give him gifts. He won't regard it. He's mad. He will not regard any ransom, neither will he rest content. Though thou givest many gifts, no matter what you do, you can try to pay him off. You can give him gifts. You can do anything to try to make things right when you have messed with his wife, but you can't make it right. He is going to want to kill you until you both die. He's going to be 80 years old and still want to kill you. All right? Let's go straight into chapter 7. My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Remember the commandments. Remember the commandments. My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Chapter 7, verse 1. Now verse 2. Keep my commandments and live. and my law as the apple of thine eye. You have to love the law of the Lord and want to keep it. And if you keep it, he says, keep my commandments and live. If you keep his commandments, you're going to live. Okay? The Lord will draw you to where you are under the blood. Now, if you're one of those wicked religious leaders, they don't keep the commandments, do they? They teach them, but they don't keep them. Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. Troy, are you wondering what? I think that's cool that you're putting the scriptures on the screen. I think that's great. Okay, bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, this is verse 4. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister. Make wisdom part of your family. Okay? You love wisdom. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman. Make these things a part of you. Care about them. Okay? That they may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement, and beheld among the simple ones. I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding. Verse 8. Passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house. He's foolish, foolish. In the twilight, this is verse 9, in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. In verse 10, and behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot. Be careful how you dress, ladies, okay? Don't dress like a slut, all right? Dress modestly if you claim faith in Christ, all right? Behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot and subtle of heart. Now I'm going to look in my commentary over here in my other Bible here. This one doesn't really have one. We are in Proverbs 7. That would be verse 10. These commentaries are very helpful in my other Bible here. Okay, 7:10. Now let me look up here. Now, for chapter 7, it's let me read this one to you here from the end of chapter 6. Covenant children of God who commit adultery will experience trouble and dishonor. Moreover, their reproach shall never be taken away. You can never, ever make that right when you cheat on your spouse. You can't make it right. Adultery is a grave and heinous sin against God and against the innocent partner who has been defrauded. The shame and disgrace of that sin remain with the guilty party for life. Though the guilt of adultery may be forgiven by repentance, its reproach will remain, and its scars are never completely removed. Amends can never be adequately made. Because of the far-reaching and fearful consequences of adultery on all involved, we should run from every temptation and shun all associations that might lead to this sin. We should pray to be delivered from temptation and soberly recall the words of Scripture when tempted. Let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. Now, in the commentary, hang in there with that, Troy. Hang in there just a little bit. Well, we're almost to the bottom of the hour, aren't we? Once more, Proverbs warns against immorality committed in the name of love, emphasizing its disastrous results. Sexual immorality can be avoided by being firmly committed to all that God says is right and good. Walk with God and you will not fall into that trap. By not allowing our thoughts to dwell on lustful pleasures, and by knowing that this sin leads to sorrow, regret, and death. Okay. We're at the bottom of the hour. Troy's going to take us to a break. We'll be right back with our study in Genesis. Don't go away.